So, welcome back to everyone. So we are carrying on with the Spitfire, which we started a couple of episodes ago. Now we gave this had about 3 coats of the Revel paint. I didn't have any Humbrol available to me to use, but it's very similar. You would do exactly the same sort of thing with thinning it with water and brushing it on. 3 coats, and that seems to be good enough for what we've got there. So now we need to look at putting the camo pattern on. So you need to have a look at your instructions and see what sort of pattern it is. Now there's a couple of ways of putting your camo pattern on. We're not going to be concerned with spraying at the moment. That we'll cover that in a later episode. At the moment, we're just going to do it freehand. You can use tape. You can use blue tack. You can roll it up. That's, for example, like that. For example, you can just roll it up into little, and you can lay it down in your various shape that you want and then paint round it. That's handy for spraying. You can use tape. You can get the Tamiya tape, which will go around curves. It will curve. This size, I would recommend getting a thin one, because the thicker one won't be able to curve nowhere near as much in these tight spaces. But for me, I truly think your best option for me is to do it freehand. We don't really... We'll mix up the brown first, which is what we're going to use. We're going to use a dark earth on this, and we can see our camouflage pattern there. Let me just move that over a little bit. And again, we give this a good shake. Oh, that's going to need more than a shake. Well, let's see if we can rescue this a bit. So we've come across a tub that's probably been left a little while, and as you can see, that's not going to shake. It's too thick and gloopy. In this situation, if you've got no other paint available to you, we can try and rescue this. So what we'll do is, if you get some water, thinner would be better, but if you haven't got thinner, we'll just use some water. Put in some drops there, and then you want a cocktail stick. Where have I put that? I'm going to see if we can stir this up a bit. Sometimes the paint will be so badly gone that you will have no other recourse but to go out and buy a new one. And you can see how bad that is. It can still, it's a bit of a tough decision to make now, because basically I'm trying to do these shows showing how you can paint this with the bare minimum, with the equipment that you get when you first start out. That was what that was the brief at the beginning of this. Now I've come across a paint which it is salvageable. It's coming back, but ideally I would rather change and use a different paint. But by doing that, I'm going outside the parameters I set for myself. Saying that, I have managed to get that back. We'll just get some more thinner in. Water, sorry. Stir that in. There we go. Oh, that's not actually too bad now. It looked worse than it was at one point. And that's how you recover paint. Most paints that have been left, as long as they've been sealed and they've been left in reasonable conditions, not you know, too stronger element one way or the other, most of them can be recovered. Hello, Paul. Hopefully there'll be some more people along soon. So now we've been using the sword, the graduate sword brush, which was my only concession really for myself, in that you don't get one of these with the kit. So I cheated a bit on that one, I'll admit. Now I do have a Humbrol brush, but it's too fine for first of all, I just want to put an outline to follow. So I want a brush that's fairly, yeah, I want this. So your Humbrol brush will look pretty much like this. It'll be a little bit bigger. In fact, we have got, yeah, we'll go with that. That is a Humbrol brush then. So first of all, we just want to just try orient your plane in a similar situation to how it is in the drawing, and then obviously the darker parts are, I'm saying obviously, maybe not so obviously. I would have said the darker parts probably the green. I've got to just let me flick to a colour drawing I've got. No colour drawing. I closed the window. That was a sensible thing to do. Right, we'll go with what are we saying here? 30, 29.90, 30, 29.90. I don't know what colours they are. Does anyone watching know what Humbrol 30 is? Audience participation. I'm pretty sure that's going to be brown. Yeah. Okay, we'll go. We'll just take a plunge. Try and use the lines in the drawing. You can see the panel lines in the drawing. Use them as a guide, and you shouldn't go far wrong really. So we'll start with this one. We know that we just touch it in there, and then we're coming round, and it's going to loop down there like that. So we've got the panel line there, yeah, so they're all in the right place. Them lines are all in the right place. Another thing you can do, if you're not too sure of that, you can plant little markers. So let's do this next one. So we can see that the brown starts or ends, whichever way you want to look at it. Dark green is 90. Yeah, excellent, that's what I thought. So thanks for that, Matt. we can see that it starts roughly halfway along, and it branches upwards at a slope slightly. So we'll go like that, and then what you can do, if you don't feel confident in drawing a straight line, is just put little markers, so at key points. So we cross this panel line here. Let me see, let me just make sure I've got that. This panel line here, round about there. So just put a little dot there, and then we come up a little bit, and then you put another little dot there, like that. And then you've only got to join the short sections together, and then we drop down. And we drop down to about there, so we put another dot there, and that's, then you're not got to go so far. So you can literally just come up, down like that. Just keep following. Just try and keep the line nice and straight. On this one, we don't want any blending as such. You want a hard line difference between the brown and green. Some of them are more sort of blurry and soft at the edge. And then just come along. Don't want to go mad with the paint. You won't need as much this time as you did with the green, because you've already got layers down, and the brown will just complement the green on top. We'll just go along. I made a slight error when I painted this, and it was pointed out to me earlier on that I've painted the bottom green, and one side of that, or maybe all of this, has got to be very pale, maybe even white. So I've made myself a task there, but no problem, we'll overcome that. So we do the same along here as well. Just try and follow. And we can see that the line will come over, up and across the back of the cockpit. So the back of the cockpit's going to be here. We'll put that section in there so we know, and it sort of comes down around the edge of that, and then it's going to, if we then go down and look at the side view, we want this one here, yeah, and it just basically drops off down the side. So and then obviously these black lines, will either paint these black foot plates in later, or there'll be decals. I'm not sure what they'll be yet till I look at the decal sheet. And the same with the front. We can see on the top it comes around the front of the cockpit and then slopes off and just goes shy of the exhaust stack. shy of the exhaust stack, and then down onto the, just stops where on the belly, because obviously the bottom's going to be a different colour, going to be a brighter colour. Just making sure that I'm staying in shot. I normally work a lot closer, so I'm trying to, just got to remember to keep moving that. To offer my apologies to any viewers that tried to watch last week. It was a humongous technical error. When I say technical, I mean I buggered it up a bit. My apologies for that. But we're back on track now. Just get some advice from some good friends and colleagues that I model with. And I think that's one of the things, if you're starting out modeling, you want to get yourself, find yourself a good group to work with, because they'll become invaluable to you. The joint knowledge of everyone will far outweigh any book, magazine, anything like that, because if you can find yourself a good group, you will never ever come across anything that you can't do. And sometimes it's just a bit of what's the word I'm looking for? Persuasion. Sometimes you just need the, a bit of persuasion. And sometimes you need somebody to give you a kick up the arse and tell you where you're going wrong. I speak from experience on that one. So there we go. We've got them two on there. Now we're going to come around to the other side. And you can see, looking at the drawing at the bottom there, that again it drops down to about there. Nice straight line, there's no kinks or and then we come a little bit behind the cockpit, and roughly where that frame in line is there, just a little bit short of that, and then we're going to come up slightly and then curve in, and then over to the rear of the canopy. Keep this going. I might have to finish the camo pattern off sort of there, because I want to, there's a couple of things I wanted to get done tonight, but we'll see how it goes. And what we can do now, we'll give the man a little bit of brown on his head for his helmet. This is not an exercise in figure painting. I will be doing figure painting, but I don't want to be not demonstrating that on this character here. As I've said before, I very, very rarely put a figure in in the aeroplane because I don't like the Airfix figures for a start, and because the details all soft and it looks more like a blob of plastic than facial features. Um, yeah, it's going to be absolute nightmare to try and make that look halfway decent. So yeah, I'll just put him in there just so that people could see what it looked like. So we're going to come across the front of this one as well. And we're coming down over the exhaust stack. And then we're curving away. Like so. And then on this one we've got difference of opinion there on the drawings. It says that it comes all the way over the top. In here it says that the camo's all the way to the end where the propeller is, and then when you come down to the side drawing it's saying it doesn't come all the way to the end, so I can only assume it drops back. We'll use that bit on the bottom is going to be a lighter colour anyway, so yeah, just reading the comments there. You're exactly right, Dave. It does groups such as ISM. Yeah, they do help with lagging mojo. It's very true. For those that maybe are not sure what mojo is, it's just a term. It's just a term meaning, you know, a lack of enthusiasm. You know, when you do something a lot and then you just get up one day and you just don't feel interested in doing it, that would be a lack of mojo. So sometimes you go in, it's like when you watch, I don't know, say you watch like a fishing video or a snooker video or something like that, and then afterwards you decide, I quite actually fancy a game. Lost some concentration there, and it shows. I'm supposed to be following that line, and I've gone completely wrong. And that's what happens when you're not concentrating properly. Just click on that a minute. It says your communist move. Don't know why that is. I have to look into that. Right, there we go. So we've got quite a thin piece here. We come along and we're going to that looks like a tooth actually. It's the shape of a tooth. And we'll drop that off there. And then again, we've got we'll just get that on there. Near the end of this will come down. Then what's going on underneath there, and just a little bit over from that. There we go. And now we can fill in this section. Although this paint has been saved, it's not brilliant. It's probably quite old. I mean, I've had it some years. Still probably a bit too thick. For my liking, it might even end up leaving brush lines in, which is what happens when it gets a bit too thick. We're not too bad over here though. Once it dries down, it's okay. There we go. And then we've just got the two sides and the rear tail. So progress is moving on well. We'll just come up here. Just along the top of the spine there on the plane. And we have got a nice finish coming off that paint. I'm really surprised given the state it was in. So I mean, never you know, just open a paint, look at it and see it's all gloopy and just throw it, because paint can and will settle, and it does go gloopy like that. And I mean, we've proven tonight that the state that was in, with just adding water, thinner's better, but just adding water brings it back into a state where you can paint it. And it's drying nicely on this side. It's dried nicely. We've got a few brush strokes, but what I would do there is I will come back and go over this with, I will water this down a bit more. Not going to have time to do it on air because I've got other things that I want to be showing people tonight. And we will go over with a very thin coat of the brown. And we just move round to the other side. And you've got like a crescent shape going on there. There we go, and we're just going to fill that in. Add it to the tail. I think that goes all the way up to the top. Let me just quickly do these cross. Don't worry if you if your design doesn't match the drawing exactly. After all, it's all about whether you're happy with it and whether you want it to look like this. You might want your plane to be black and white all over, and that's perfectly fine if you want to do that. It's fair to say that some people will try and tell you that you've got to paint it a certain way, or that it doesn't look right if it's not painted a certain way. You don't have to listen to that. If you paint the plane as you wish, in a way that you want, that makes you happy, don't listen to everyone else. When you do listen to other people, it's if you're trying to do something that's for, maybe it's for a competition, or you want to do something that's historically accurate, or you're trying to replicate a scene from history, then you need to look at the history books, do your research, and try and make sure you get everything as close as possible, because people will come and look closely and they will pick fault. Now, there's two trains of thought. If somebody picks fault but offers a way of fixing it, or offers you sound advice, then that maybe isn't picking fault, they're just critiquing your work. If somebody just comes in and point blank tells you this is wrong, that's wrong, and you know that's just very rude, and you shouldn't listen to that. But there we go. So for tonight, as regards to Spitfire, we've got the camouflage pattern on. I just need to get a cup to put. We've got the camouflage pattern already. And what I'll do off air, I will water it down. I will come along and put another thin coat of brown over that. What I will also do to save time next week, on the base, I'm going to come along with a thin white wash, and I'm just going to whitewash the bottom. This area on the diagram, I'm just going to come along and put a thin white wash on there to knock all this back, so that when I put the white paint down, we're not going to have lots of green showing through. So I'm basically trying to head off any problems before they occur in future episodes. So with the plane out the way for now, we're going to practical now. We're going to make a wet palette. This is something I've never done before. I've done a bit of research, and when I say research, I've looked at YouTube, and this is what I've come up with. This is a do-it-yourself wet palette. So what have we got here? First thing you need really is some sort of little lunchbox, Tupperware pot, preferably one that's sealable, that's not going to leak. And this one is one of those. And you just take the lid off, and then you need some baking parchment or baking paper. You buy this. This we got out of Tesco's, 15-metre race, and you know, it's about £1. It's you need that. You don't. This, if you're using this for just wet palettes, that will probably last you the rest of your life. You'll see why in a minute. There's 15 metres of that. Then you need a bit of kitchen roll. I've got the stuff I use for mopping up spills and such like. And then basically you need to cut that to size. I'm not going to puff it up too much, because it might not work as well. So I've never done this before. So if it doesn't work, I'm just going to look a complete tip. But we'll give it a go. I can see that many people will probably say I already am a complete tip, but there you go. Cut that off there, and then let's see if that's a good fit. I want it to come up the sides a little bit, not too much. Pop that in there. We'll take that out, we don't need that in. Then we want our baking parchment. Now, it doesn't really matter which side it goes, up or down. I think it doesn't really matter. This is basically what you'll put your paint onto. And let's just cut that a bit. There we go. Now then, now we've got to put dribble a little bit of water on it. And just it beads on the top. That's okay. Just run that around. I don't know why we've got to do this bit, but so we're letting that running around. And then I think that's supposed to seep through because it's a porous. So basically the water is absorbed by your kitchen towel in the bottom. Then when you're painting, you add your paints to the top, and the moisture from this comes up through your parchment paper. Yeah, I see why you've got to roll it around, because it gets it to stick down in the corners. That's it. Yes, so the paper all sticks together. You don't want so much water that you know that it's floating. That if you've got that, you've got too much. That's actually about perfect now how I've got it. You can see where we've rolled the water around to the edges, it's gently sort of stuck itself to the kitchen roll underneath. That is spot on. So what happens now is we get our, let me get a couple of Citadel paints out. Let's get rid of the gold. And a blue. So you come along with your Citadel paints. And then you just put your paint on the surface like that. What do I do with me water? There it is. And then we'll get another one here. This is Auric Armor Gold. I'll show you this in a minute, what we've used this for. This one's a lot thicker. So we'll take a small amount of that. We'll put that on there as well. And you can have all sorts of colours, not just these two. This is just, I'm using this as an example. And then you can, you know, if you want to mix that gold with that blue, and probably not advisable, but you come up to a separate part of the parchment and you can mix the two together over there. And you can thin the paints out if you so wish. And you've got more control then over your painting of the models. Now I'll show you what happens when you don't use a wet palette. And we've got a Stormcast Eternal that I painted without using a wet palette. So I literally got the golds and I came along and I painted them directly onto the model with no wet palette at all. And essentially it looks okay. It looks okay, but you can see the texture in the paint. It's not great. If it will come into focus again for me. It's a bit lumpy and bumpy. You probably don't notice it as much now because it's all been painted the same. But if I was to put a figure next to it that has been painted with the wet palette, you would see a difference straight away. The paint's a lot thinner, a lot smoother, and it's certainly much more beneficial to do it this way. So one of our next projects is going to be to paint another one of these, but with the wet palette, and we're going to paint another Stormcast Eternal, which is one of these. Now these are available from Games Workshop, and I think this month they've got a magazine out, and it's got one of these free on the front. If you want to see what the magazine's like, I've got a review on my channel of it. It's a very good magazine for somebody starting out in Games Workshop or Warhammer. It's got a lot of detail in there, a lot of help on painting. I highly recommend it. And the other beauty with the paint palette is when you finish, this is where it comes into its own. You just pop the lid back on, seal it up, and you can store that for a few days, and you can just come back, reopen it, and the paints will be good to go. If they're not, you know, you can add a bit more water and it will reabsorb into the paper and underneath, and you'll be back to go again. Back to go again. Is that even a phrase? Back to go again. It's a load of mumbo jumbo. So, with that said, we're going to have a look at this Stormcast Eternal, and we're probably going to put it together. So this is moving on from the aircraft. We're still doing the aircraft. We're doing that in the original, with the original brief, trying to do it as it would come to you in an Airfix kit. Now we're going to move a step on, and we're going to build a Games Workshop Stormcast Eternal figure. But we're going to start using other tools that you would find around the a workbench. And one of the first tools we're going to use is the sprue cutters. And these ones are for cutting plastic, obviously. They come in different, there's a blue set of blue handle ones. These are for cutting photo etch. That's a little brass fret of pieces, which we'll look at in another show, another time. We don't want to overload with information at the moment. So again, we just cut away from the figure or the item we're cutting. We don't want to cut right up close to it, because the plastic will flex as you cut, and if it's a fine piece, it does carry the risk of breaking. So we'll cut that out. We'll leave his head in for the second. Just use the tips there. Make sure I'm cutting the right spot. This is the scroll. The shield. And then finally we've got the base. Very quick kit to put together, this is. Very quick kit to put together wrongly as well. So we need to pay attention, be careful. We've got lots of spines here that are supposed to be on, so we don't want to cut them off. The head on this is very small. So there are our pieces. We don't need this now. Some people like to keep them in case of needing spare parts. So once again, we go to our trusty UMP sanders. And I like to use this one just for, if we go around each piece in turn and make sure we remove, there we've got a tiny little piece of plastic there. Now we're away from the sprue, I can safely come in and just nip that off, and then just very gently brush that over the top. Yes, that's not quite what I'm after there. There we go. That's there we go. Better. When we go around, we can see we've got another one there. I don't know if you can see. There's another little spelk on the top of there. We'll just remove that. And we've got to be careful because we don't want to ruin the there's an epaulette or something that it's on, so we just take the top off and then go over very gently till we've got a nice smooth. Incidentally, these thinny sticks are great for this sort of thing. They're much better than what we were using with the Airfix kit, which, as you remember, was basically just a file that you would buy in a shop. If I was to tell you to buy one thing immediately, it would be a starter pack, 2 starter packs, one of the thinny sticks, one of the sanders, which are more sort of this sort of shape. They're available at umpretail.com. It would probably set you back about I don't know, 20 quid, somewhere in that region, for both, and they'll last you a long time. I've still got all mine. I haven't thrown one out. The first set I bought, I'm still using. This comes from the second set, I believe, and they really do save you a lot of grief. If I'd have come in now with the purple file, it would have just absolutely. Let me just show you what I mean. So we've got a flat bit of plastic there. So if we come in with this, and you remember you want to do a gentle. Let me just rub that over the top. And you can see that that's created huge scarring scratches across this plastic surface. By contrast, if we come in with this one, which is not the finishing one, bear in mind this is a coarse sander, but it's nowhere near as rough as that one. Sorry, I'm showing you the wrong side. Let me get that. There we go. These, I don't know, that people say you should use these. You can get away with using these for your modelling. Not really. No, it's false economy. Your work will suffer. The finished results of your build will suffer. It's a much happier experience, and you know you buy the ones that you're happy with buying. I mean, you've got to try these items out for yourself. I've tried them out, so I know which ones I like. But as I've said before, a good indicator, when you see other people modelling, have a look on their bench. See what they use, you know, and then you can make your own decision from that. If you see all the modelers using a specific type of knife or a specific set of sprue cutters, then there's a good chance that there's a good reason for that. It's because it works. Consequently, if you keep hearing that something's bad and it doesn't work, you don't use it or eat it, in the case of chicken. Little topical reference there. There we go. Just trim these off. Flip over to the other side because it's too thick. Very gently. Don't force. Don't push down and force the sander. Just very lightly. Let the sander do the work. You'll get far more done, and you'll find that it cuts through better. And there's an example there. I mean, that's if I was to push down hard on that, it's not going to go away any quicker. Now, if I come across, you know, if I come across lightly, very lightly, just, and already we're near the bottom. Incidentally, I normally would have cut that off, but I was just demonstrating that you don't need gently approach. And then when your sander becomes blocked, you can wipe it. Not on your best clothes. Please don't do that. I'll be getting angry emails from parents or whatever, or spouses, partners, saying that the clothes are all ruined. And then your teeth are all good to go again, or the sanding. He will stand on the bench eventually. Yeah, there we go. So we're approaching the end of the hour now. So I'm going to probably finish up there. And then what we'll do next week, we'll do another half hour of the Airfix build, which is coming close to an end. And then we'll do the other half hour with the Stormcast Eternal. So before I go, I'll just have a quick scoot over to the chat, see whether anybody has any questions they want to ask before I go. Thanks everyone for the comments. Yeah, thanks Rob. Thank you for coming. Thanks for watching. Thanks Matt. John. Thank you everyone. Carl. One sheet is plenty. Is that? I weren't sure whether that's like a reference to the kitchen towel one, because that used to be called plenty. Interesting fact of the day, that. So, no, there doesn't appear to be any questions at all. Wouldn't have expected any really at this stage, but you never know that. Again, thanks for watching. It's been much more enjoyable this time, much more relaxed. And once we get into the flow of things, I'm sure we'll have lots of good fun together, doing various jobs, topics, and what have you. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.